This is TWiT.
On the topic of thwarting swapping attacks, as we know, I titled our August 31st podcast, Life Hanging by a Pin. And I know from the much greater than average level of feedback I received that my painting a clear picture of just how vulnerable we would typically be if our smartphone number were to fall into the hands of an attacker, that a greater awareness of the trouble did hit home with our listeners. So I was interested to see, and I was initially hopeful, and I wanted all of our listeners to know that at least some of the U.S. bureaucracy is awake to this threat and is beginning to move on it. The bad news is that the specific arm of the U.S. bureaucracy is the FCC. Last Thursday, the FCC, of course, our Federal Communications Commission, announced its plans to introduce new rules for U.S. mobile carriers to govern any changes made to their subscribers' telephone numbers in an attempt to address the growing problem of SIM swapping and port-out fraud attacks. Okay, that sounds great, right? Of course, as we know, these attacks surround mobile carriers' failure to correctly verify the requesting party's identity when that party requests either that their service be transferred to a new SIM card or to an account at another mobile operator. That podcast, number 834, painted a very clear and depressing picture of just how much devastation could result. The U.S. Justice Department has charged many individuals over the past few years with theft enabled by SIM swapping and port-out fraud. And some of the victims of these thefts have, understandably, brought lawsuits against their mobile carriers in an attempt to recover their monetary losses. Many of those lawsuits are still working their way through the U.S.'s delay-prone legal system, so no conclusions to those yet. In response to the problems, some U.S. carriers have introduced additional verification measures to attempt to limit this sort of fraud. But the SIM swapping gangs have also upped their game. Some groups have started bribing carrier employees, or they've used vulnerabilities they've identified in the carrier's networked back-end systems to perform the attacks for them, thus skipping the need to have any direct contact and trick the carrier's front-end support staff. In its press release Thursday, the FCC announced that in response to having received, quote, numerous complaints from customers, I'll bet, that it's initiating a, quote, formal rulemaking process, unquote, by issuing a, quote, notice of proposed rulemaking. Okay, these are the same people who said they were going to outlaw and prevent telephone spam. So I think this means that it's still going to be up to us to protect ourselves. An FCC spokesperson told The Record, who reported on this issue, that, quote, the FCC's rulemaking process generally starts with a notice of proposed rulemaking that asks questions and makes proposals. We then have a period during which we take public comments, generally made through our electronic comment filing system.
Which, as we know in the past, has been somewhat unreliable.
Just to remind everyone, that's the ineptly designed system that was brutally spammed during their net neutrality request for comments period. During which more people than exist on planet Earth weighed in with their opinion about net neutrality. Anyway, they concluded, quote, after we review comments before taking any next steps, because Oh, goodness. We would not want the FCC to act prematurely on our behalf of securing our SIMs and require them to be, more security before allowing them to be moved. So, although I wrote about the fact that some of the U.S. bureaucracy is awake to this threat and is it's beginning to move on it, unfortunately, that bureaucracy is the FCC. So, and I have a friend who's
really wants to talk to you. Yes,
he's having his home repiped, and that's quite an adventure. So I'm getting, pipe by pipe updates. Which I forgot.
Well, they put in the drain pipe now. Wow.
Yeah, his house was built in '84. And he's beginning to have pinhole leaks.
Oh. Apparently
as a consequence of Southern California water, which, by the way, is why I'm on the other side of a quad filter reverse osmosis filter.
Yeah.
It is undrinkable down here in Southern California.
Yeah. Well, that's because you steal it from us.
When we were growing
poison
up,
it before we send it to you.
Yeah. Remember when we were growing up, you'd have the hose on a hot Saturday afternoon
drink from that?
with this you just
so
just
good.
slurp. Oh
so
my
good.
God. It was.
Well, you were up here in Northern California. The water was better in San Mateo back in those days. San Francisco has very pristine water.
Even now you can drink it?
Yeah, it's from the Hetch Hetchy. So it's it's good. I'm not sure where LA gets its water, but I don't. I'm not surprised it's not good.
It comes out of the sewer system, I think. Now, you don't want to be getting it out of the ocean, Lord knows.
No.
Because we've got a big oil spill down here.
Yeah, right off the coast, right where you are. Yeah.
And don't I remember, are you using well water?
We have a well. And we, like you, have a significant amount of filtration. We have softening because there's a lot of iron in it. And then it goes from the softening. And the drinking water specifically is reverse osmosis and charcoal filtered, and Yep. It's delicious though. By the time it's done, man, that's good. It's kind of like getting the hose in your backyard out of the backyard.